If you live in Florida, you can't have a vegetable garden through the summer. It's just too hot and rainy. That's not true. I grow vegetables year-round. The secret is knowing which vegetables will grow through the summer. I'm going to show you vegetables that I grow, and I promise you it will be vegetables that you actually like. Hi, I'm Debbie, and welcome to my organic garden.
All I have needs, I have not provided.
You might have noticed that I have corn growing and I have black-eyed peas growing. That is just the spring crop that's finishing up. The corn will be ready in a couple of weeks, so that is not something that you want to plant during the summer. And black-eyed peas will grow, but there's so many insects that love black-eyed peas that I don't recommend that you plant them through the summer unless you're just using them for a cover crop. So I just wanted to let you know these are not vegetables that I recommend that you plant through the summer months. So let's get to the veggies that I do grow through the summer. This is one of the coolest vegetables that you can grow year-round. Anytime you have a recipe calling for green onions, these work the same way. They're not exactly a green onion, but they're very similar. One of the cool things about these onions is they multiply. My original set of onions was given to me about 8 or 9 years ago, and I just keep dividing them and splitting them up, and they are in various places throughout my garden. I'm going to pull some out and I'll show you what they look like. When I'm in the middle of a recipe, I just grab a spatula and I come out here and I just split them off and cut them right down through the middle here. I did just cut these back about a month ago, so they're not real mature, but when they do mature, they're a pretty good size. That's a green onion size. And all of these can be split off and you can go plant them somewhere else and they'll make a ton more just like this. If you want your onions to multiply, you're going to dig them up. You'll split them into however many pieces you want. And when you plant them, then you're going to cut them way back. You're only going to leave about 1 inch and they will grow back. I cut these back about a month ago and look how quick they came back. The ones in the front are a bit more mature. Just leave the ones in the back to grow some more and harvest the ones that are mature. They really do taste exactly like green onions. You won't know the difference in your recipe. These are a small Spanish peanut. I prefer the smaller ones to the larger ones because I make peanut butter out of them. The larger ones make great boiled peanuts. They're a little bit more difficult to get them cooked all the way through to make a decent peanut butter. And the Spanish peanuts have a little bit more oil to them from what I can tell. Plant your peanuts about 1 every 3 to 4 inches. I planted some of these a little bit thicker because I'm not sure how viable they are. These came from the freezer and they should be fine, but you can always thin them out. Peanuts are so beneficial for your garden. Not only do they give you peanuts to eat, but they incorporate nitrogen back into the soil and they really will enhance the quality of your soil. So I'm going to cover these up and then I'm going to take you into the corn where I've already planted some peanuts, and there's a couple of mature plants in there as well. So I'll show you what they look like. But first, I got to cover these up or I'm going to forget. I planted peanuts at the base of the corn about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We did have some heavy, windy storms that came through, and I did hill the corn back up so that it was upright because the ears had not been fully pollinated at that time. But once I was sure that they had been pollinated, I just let them go ahead and lean, and you see that they do bend upwards again, and the corn is developing the ears. So that's just a little tidbit as I tell you about the peanuts. Peanuts and corn get along quite well, although admittedly these peanuts probably would have appreciated a little bit more sunshine. This is a mature peanut plant, and I'm going to dig it up and show you where the peanuts are hiding underneath this bush. There are some varieties that will put down these roots, and then there's a peanut along the root. If you leave that in the ground until that little peanut is mature, then the other peanuts that are mature down underneath will start to sprout, and, well, you can't eat them when they've sprouted. I guess you could, but I don't know what you would do with them. So you're going to come up way up underneath. So you've got all kinds of peanuts here. This is a Seminole pumpkin vine. I planted the seeds way down there at the end of this 20-foot bed. They make a great ground cover. So there's a dual purpose here. Ground cover and pumpkins that are delicious. Look at how big the leaves get. Let me show you a pumpkin that's not ripe yet, but it's getting there. There she is. Seminole pumpkins are so versatile. You can harvest them when they're 3 or 4 days old, and it will remind you of zucchini squash. You can harvest them at this stage, and it will remind you of acorn squash. Or you can let it continue to mature. It will turn a yellowish orange, and you use the flesh inside just like any other pumpkin. It's great for pies and soups and pumpkin bread and pumpkin muffins. I mean, I use it for everything that you normally would any kind of pumpkin recipe. Right now, this is the only pumpkin that I know that's growing in here, but that's typical. You're going to get a whole lot of male flowers first, and then you'll get some female flowers. I got to tell you a little bit about Seminole pumpkin and the seeds that are being sold as Seminole pumpkins. A lot of them have been cross-pollinated with other kinds of pumpkins. They will cross-pollinate with squash, even zucchini and yellow crookneck squash. It's the weirdest thing, but they're a squash and they will cross-pollinate. If you are going to save your seeds, you have to save seeds from a pumpkin that's been grown when there's no possibility of there being any other kind of squash or pumpkins growing anywhere within a mile. Those bees will travel as far as a mile, sometimes even longer, as they are visiting flowers. I save my seed either in the dead of summer or the middle of winter when there's no possibility of there being squash grown anywhere near here. And I live in a semi-farming community, a farming community that's slowly becoming subdivisions. And I know the area pretty well, so I know when the farmers are growing what kind of vegetable. My strain of Seminole pumpkins are about 25 years old now because I have been very, very careful not to save seed from a pumpkin that had any chance of being cross-pollinated. If you can get just one pumpkin, you will have enough seeds to last you probably for the rest of your life if they would be viable that long. But do try to save your own seed. Just be really, really careful about the seasons that you are saving them in. So that's Seminole pumpkin. Notice that I have bunching onions here. These are Asian long beans. When I found out that I could have fresh green beans from the garden through the summer, I was so excited. And they're good. You can snap them like regular beans, or you can use them in an Asian recipe. And they're great in soups too. These beans were planted about 3 weeks ago. They do take some time to get up and running, but boy, when they start running, they will run. I had tomatoes planted here, and when I pulled them out, I just took advantage of the stakes and the string that's already here because these vines will run and cover this entire trellis here. So Asian long beans. Try it. You'll be glad you did. And last but certainly not least, sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are so good for you. They are easy to grow. And if you've got them up on some beds, they should do just fine right through the rainy seasons. My property will get saturated if we have a lot of rain and it never lets up. So there is the possibility that the potatoes that are forming will get ruined. That's why I like to start them way back in February. They're ready to plant by June, and they're actually still just growing through that rainy season. They're not typically making potatoes that early. They'll start making the potatoes somewhere around October, and by then our rain is pretty much finished. Unless we get a hurricane like what happened last year. We had Hurricane Ian, and I lost some potatoes because of that. Here we are at the other end of my garden. This is a bed of sweet potatoes that I planted the vines about 3 weeks ago. They are now taking off. I had more vines that came up, not these in the front. Those are still cucumbers, and I'm hoping to get a couple more cucumbers from. But if you look closely, these poor vines were planted yesterday, but they will revive. They will be just fine. There's another bed from here all the way down. So if I take you out on a long zoom so you can see the whole front half of my garden will be covered with sweet potato vines eventually. And it is a good chance that most of those beds will have sweet potatoes in them. As the sweet potatoes spread, they make potatoes as they spread. I have not seen a difference of whether you trim them back or not. I may try a couple of beds to see if it does make a difference. But I do hope to have sweet potatoes through all of those front beds. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it was helpful. I hope you can become a year-round gardener just like me. Be sure to check out my playlist. There's lots of helpful information there.
Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me.